I have lots of good things to say about Tamil Nadu, and I won't say all of it because I think then I'll take up the whole time, and I don't want to do that. And for those of you who haven't heard PTR before, this is not your usual minister talk at all, right? It's far from it. It's because of the fact that he wasn't a minister to begin with, right? I mean, this is his second career in some sense, and he's been one of us in many ways. Been in the industry, been a successful leader, traveled around the world, lived around the world, and of course, as you know, we've sent out the bio to all of you. But you know, since this is a People Summit, Minister, and then I want to start by saying, look, your own journey in terms, if you really purely look at it from the individual whom you are, you've had a phenomenal background, you had a fantastic but diverse career from all the way from Lehman Brothers to Standard Chartered to now, you know, you're truly creating, shaping a state with its digital policy, with its broadly what the state wants to do. How do you navigate all of this in such a beautiful way? And we think it's very, very nice, by the way, from looking from outside. But just tell us a little bit more about how did you do all of that and in such diverse way?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me and thank you for a very generous introduction. Look, I think, you know, it's not an even world. A lot of people have advantages in different ways. Some don't. And part of the job of government, part of why I'm in government, is to try and make it more equitable, more kind of, at least equality of opportunity, because a good society, a harmonious kind of democracy requires that. Otherwise, you end up getting too much over there. So in my case, I would say, I was fortunate. I was fortunate to be born in the right place with the right legacy and the right kind of financial circumstances. And so my father encouraged me to study. I was not naturally inclined. I always got good grades, and I'm eternally curious, but I was not particularly keen on studying till I went to the US. And then I discovered I really liked studying when it was not rote learning and it was not kind of regurgitation. So I studied a lot. I got many degrees doing many things. I had the great luxury of starting as a consultant while I was still a graduate student. A long story, but net result was I started going out first time in the real world outside of academia, very young, by the age of 22, 23, as a consultant to big companies, big global brands, Motorola, IBM, Sumitomo. And I learned that, you know, my ability to put things together and assess them and come up with improvements and stuff was not bad. And people kept calling me back and paying me. So I started a career as a consultant. I kept studying in parallel. And of course, I think somewhere in my head, I had this obligation to come back and serve the people because my father had done that, his father before him, his father before him. And so I kept putting it off. I kept saying, let me learn something more, do something more, learn something more. So eventually I went back very late in life, early 30s, to business school because I had figured out a whole lot of things operationally, engineering-wise, people-wise, optimization-wise, but always finance seemed to be the real power, right? Like some CFO would decide what gets done or not. And I said, I got to figure out how this works. So I went back, got an MBA in finance. At the time, I had no real ambition. I thought I'll finish that more as an excuse for delaying coming back to India. And then I discovered I had quite a passion for it because a lot of it was math, at least the kind of finance I was doing at the time. Very strong derivative, securitization, a lot of financial engineering. So then I went to Wall Street for a little while. Maybe this is the last from-scratch career, excluding politics, that I do. So I did about 10, 15 years in banking, various parts of the world. Had a really phenomenal breadth of experience and opportunity. And I'm here. So if you ask me, in looking back, I'd like to say I had some grand design, but the reality is I was fortunate. I didn't need to earn a living. I discovered I was self-sufficient before I really thought about it because my consulting career was very successful. And then, of course, in banking, you get paid a lot, particularly if you're a successful banker. So it allowed me the freedom to do a lot of things, which, was more luck and circumstance than any thoughtful planning. Having come here, though, then I think 5 years in opposition was profoundly helpful to me. And then the 2 years in the kind of more finance plus pensions plus human resources plus planning development. The administration of government was again a huge learning curve and a big benefit to me. And now technology, which is the future. So I've been fortunate, I think, more than anything, to have a lot of opportunities.
No, I think it's also very. And I know that you said it wasn't by a grand design, but it sort of happened. But when you look at the trajectory and the way, I mean, especially with the Wall Street experience, I'm sure that it gave you a lot of insights when you ran the finance ministry for the first couple of years. I think that was very relevant, and in fact, I remember Tamil Nadu Exchequer was one of the best in many ways, and you did a phenomenal job. And now you're shaping the digital policy for the state. So, what is the real? I mean, look, Tamil Nadu scores very, very high, and then I've heard you many times. Kind of positioning Tamil Nadu pitting against any state in India, and well, there may be some ranking which might show up or down. Broadly, I think you've done a phenomenal job with the state. So what is the grand vision? Where do you really go from here?
Well, I think I would say more than my financial experience, it was my experience running large organizations. I was global head of a bunch of products at Stanchart, with several thousand employees around 60, 70 countries. And when I was at Lehman also, I was running across fixed income equities, prime services, research, trading, sales, a few hundred people. So I think it was more my organizational experience that was really useful in my old job. And in my old job, I realized the only future for us is the massive deployment of technology, and it has to be ubiquitous. And now in the age of AI, even voice-based interaction between citizens and the government, driven by AI, has to be the future, because the system is crumbling, actually. The nature of administration and of democracy in many parts of the world is not unique to Tamil Nadu or India. Look around the world. Disruptors are taking advantage of a lot of failings of the democratic model and promising the sun and the moon and basically saying, I'm here to tear down the system. The system is failing. To me, the only real long-term solution, and that I discovered when I was finance minister more than technology, is as I say, it has to be ubiquitous, it has to be comprehensive, and it has to be across all levels of interaction. It can't be only people with smartphones or only people with laptops. It needs to be at every level of society, technology on the government side and citizen on the other side. So that, I think, is the grand vision. That's not, again, unique to us. It's common to a lot of people. I have the luxury of being in a seat where I can try to do some of that. But if you look at Tamil Nadu, we are just the last 3-4 years is a blink of an eye in the course of 75 years of independence and 75 plus years of independence, 75 years as a republic, and about the current contours of Tamil Nadu were probably in 1954 or 55 after the States Reorganization Act. So 70 years as a state. I think people actually is the basis. The fact that we had compulsory elementary education for boys and girls starting in the 20s, the fact that we gave relatively equal rights in property, in every way to women, the fact that we had reservations and got every community into the system, and therefore there were forerunners and guides to bring people from every village and every community into the system. So the success story of Tamil Nadu at a broad spectrum, if you ask me, over 75 years or 100 years, which is the first Justice Party government, 1921, which first time legislated women the right to vote and reservations and compulsory elementary education for boys and girls. So it has been the people's story for us. The rest of it has been plus and minus. But the people's story has been our core distinguishing factor of why we are so...
And now you know why we do the People Summit in Chennai, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, but it's so well said. I think you had this, your passion for Tamil Nadu is very, very apparent, and then what you do. But let me also give you a sense of how people perceive Tamil Nadu across the board. I mean, there's a lot of respect for Tamil Nadu. When you said that, The GCC is a great topic, and I know Tamil Nadu is attracting a lot of GCCs. But GCC by definition, there's, you need to have multicultural. There are people from overseas who are going to be constantly based on so on and so forth. While Chennai has come a long way, and I've been here several years ago, so I know how much the progress Chennai has made as a city. But when you look at it, there is still a notion. I'll tell you this notion, may or may not be right. For the rest of India, saying that, well, there's Bangalore, there's Hyderabad, there's Pune, there is a national capital region, and so on and so forth, who all have a little bit of a more oomph, if you may, or there's something which makes them multicultural, more vibrant, lot of after-hour activity, and so on and so forth. But Chennai has always been this sort of a little bit laid back in some sense, and I know I'm being very provocative in this, and I don't agree, by the way, with all these notions.
No. Listen, the facts are the facts, right? We can't twist them to suit our convenience. So I would say there are 2-3 aspects to it. The first aspect is that the amount of engineering and IT talent we produce is so high, like ratio-wise, right? We're about 6% of the population of India. We're about, depending on which year and which number you believe, between 9 and 10% of the GDP of the country. Every measure, from number of institutions to number of top-ranked institutions to number of patents to number of graduates, in every measure, we're about 20% of the kind of engineering and IT talent of the country. Now, that's a boon. It's also a limitation. What that means is, first of all, if you look at the workforce, and I didn't realize this till I came and started visiting a lot of companies, there's no other part of India, let alone the world, where the workforce is as homogeneous as it is here. Right? I don't know about Cognizant, but if you look at most of the companies here, I would say more than 80, probably in many cases more than 85% of the workforce is Tamil.
Yes.
That's because the talent is here, right?
Right.
But that's not true in Bangalore, that's not true in Hyderabad, that's not true in Pune, that's not true in Delhi, that's not true in New York, it's not true in London. So some of it is just the availability factor, and that's, even more so in Madurai and Coimbatore and Salem and Tirunelveli, is like 100% Tamil. So we have this tremendous workforce that is driving it. The flip side of it is a lot of variables go into creating this notion of multicultural and, happening place and quality of life. And to be honest, various other cities, if you look, in the last 20 years, if you say 2000, turn of the millennia, when we had the Y2K problem now, that Tamil Nadu and Chennai were much more prominent in the IT sector, yes, relatively to places like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, greater capital region. And I think what has happened is that because we have a diversified economy across manufacturing, tech, and because we have the bulk of our workforce is local, we have not really thought about becoming so attractive in quality of life and, culture and nightlife and this and that. And so from that perspective, these things take time. It takes 10, 20 years to create kind of an ecosystem. I give an example. Back when I was at Stanchart, once in 3 months I used to go to DIFC in Dubai, right? Because I was global head, I had some things to do. And DIFC used to be buzzing by like 6:37 because the eastern market's already open, so all the trading desks would be already up and about. And around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, because there wasn't much like New York work happening in Dubai, it was mostly eastern work happening in Dubai. Around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, it'd get dead. After like 6:30, you couldn't even get a cup of coffee because all the establishments would close.
Correct.
Now you go to DIFC, I've said 10, 15 years later, and it comes alive only in the night. All the clubs are there, all the bars are there, all the restaurants are there. It's like, it's much more happening at night than it is during the day, right? So things change over time. Some of it is conscious. You have to give incentives. You got to give, kind of get the right talent. You got to create like restaurants with buzz. But I would say it's changing. If you look at Chennai, particularly yesterday, I was having a discussion with somebody, particularly the last 5 years, but the last 10 years even, the restaurant scene here has improved tremendously, right? Now we're starting to see the kind of quality of life things in terms of concerts, in terms of restaurants, in terms of clubs. So I think some of this, maybe we were not paying as much attention. And it's a catch-22 problem because the talent is so local. Attrition rates are lower here.
Correct.
And wage escalations are lower here, and so companies like to be here. If you look at many of the multinational companies that are here,
Yeah.
the scale is humongous, right? 5,000, 6,000, 10,000. My old employer, Stanchart, has probably 15,000 people here. But the flip side is it seems monocultural. And that, of course, for things like innovative stuff like startups and all that, that's not a good, you want a lot of diversity.
You want vibrancy in some sense.
And yet we're doing well in things like fintech, in payments. I would say Chennai is overweight.
Definitely.
So I think, you know, it's some of it is natural conditions, some of it is fixable by policy, some of it is not policy within IT or industries or finance. It's more like societal, conditions. So every
But
place.
there's a related topic around, not just Chennai, but if you look at the other cities. I was so glad to hear Accenture, for example, had opened something in Trichy, and your own town, Madurai. I know that.
Also in Coimbatore, we're seeing such demand for office space.
Yeah. I mean, I think our example.
You have Cognizant has a huge operation there as well, right?
I don't know what Cognizant is, by the way. I'm just kidding. I kind of given up on. That's Aza was sitting in the front, but I truly agree with you that. But one of the examples that we give for successful tier 2 cities is actually Coimbatore, because of the fact that they've been able to build it very nicely. So when you look at all of these tier 2 cities, if I may call it that way, Coimbatore, Madurai, Trichy, how do you, it is not just about opening something and then having, providing people job, but you're also creating a bit of a different ecosystem in some of that. There are service providers, there are GCCs, there are others who kind of come together, and then it creates nice vibrancy, if you may. Are you looking at it when you see from a state's angle and then look at all of this? Is there a broader agenda to create a little bit more happy living for the folks out there? And then how do you make sure that you're growing up in the sort of the happiness index, as they say, for the Bhutan and so on and so forth? I mean, is there a broader, a bigger vision for the people of Tamil Nadu, if you may?
Look, I think, again, we have pluses and minuses. I think we are by far the most urbanized state. Something like 50% of our population lives in cities. We have probably 10 cities that are million plus, maybe more. So at some level, urbanization brings you some benefits. I remember my colleagues in the UP Assembly, when we were in some legislative seminar, their hope for the future is urbanization, because they say if it's urban, the per house cost of supplying drinking water and sewage and roads and all gets reduced. If it's rural, you have to spread it out across a lot of things. So capex-wise, urbanization makes it more effective for government. Now, of course, you can also have the reverse, where you grow so rapidly and so thoughtlessly or so without planning that you end up creating all kinds of problems that you have not actually designed for, right? So, it's again, a mixed thing. But we are where we are, which is that we are the most urbanized state. Therefore, from a workforce perspective, from a company perspective, typically it is somebody from our diaspora, some person who used to be from Madurai, who went to X company in Y country, made it big, and then tells them, why don't we go and set up in Madurai? Not in Tamil Nadu, not in Chennai, in Madurai. And so we have, big companies where, I just give an example. HCL has something like 7,000 people. The guy who runs it is a Madurai guy who had gone and done well in the US, came back, and then in like 6 years, they've scaled to 7,000 people. They're doing hugely advanced things, which I would not have thought of till I had gone in there. It's not like BPO, it's not like back office or anything. It's like medical innovation, re-engineering, like dialysis machines, things like that, right? So I think, again, urbanization means that overall as a state, we are very unique. Neither Karnataka nor Maharashtra, maybe the exception of Pune and Bombay, or Andhra or Telangana beyond Hyderabad, nobody else has this kind of 8, 10 centers where you can have lots and lots of talent, because you have the education system. Again, it goes back to the people. In every one of these cities and in the 100-kilometer radius of that city, you can find tens of thousands of people who are eligible workforce. So I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, somebody, a company called Pinnacle Infotech, started their 6th or 7th operation in India, in Madurai, in our Elcott SEZ. They have grown to 1,800 people in 2 years.
Wow.
And they're on their way to 3,000 something. Now they want some help getting dorms and all that. It's different. But I'm saying the talent pool is there, and this notion of this hub and spoke network, that if you go to one of these cities, You get people from the 60 or 80 kilometers of villages around. For now, the commute is still viable for some, but not for everybody. But eventually, even if you go to a partial work from home, work in the office kind of setup, these kinds of hub and spoke networks will work really well. Not just that the second tier cities are spokes to Chennai, but the second tier cities are hubs to the areas around Madurai or Salem or Tirunelveli. So I think that is a good thing for us. Now, quality of life, as again I've remarked over the last 50, 60, 70 years, the extent to which we have done urban planning is not great. Right? I give the example in my own town, in my own house in Madurai. What were, in my lifetime, when I was probably 10 years old, water bodies, maybe 10 water bodies around my house within 2 kilometers are all encroached. Encroached by whom? Income Tax Office, Kendriya Vidyalaya, City of Madurai, Corporation Office, District Court, High Court, right? Tamil Sangam. So encroached by the government, all governments from the city to the union. So this has led to some issues. And this is, I'm sure it's not unique to Madurai or Tamil Nadu, but the faster you have urbanized, the more these problems are going to haunt you. And we are the most urbanized state. So now we're trying to retrospectively, fix some of these things as best we can.
Absolutely. Now, I know time's up, so we need to, I was hoping to take some questions. But before I let you go, Minister, I want to ask you one last question for you to wrap this up. You have job creators and job seekers in some sense, right? So we focused a lot, whether it's GCC, the tech ecosystem. There are a lot of job seekers and we find employment and all of that. But what about job creators? I mean, I think, the entrepreneurial spirit, how do you see that in the state of Tamil Nadu, especially in Chennai and the neighboring? Is that something which we need to do something differently to make sure that there are more job creators at this point in time, so that you no longer have this issue of there's only job seekers?
Well, I think job creators don't drop from the sky, right? Usually, job creators are people who have learnt about a product or a system, usually working at the cutting edge in one of the bigger companies or bigger, service providers like an Accenture or Cognizant, somebody, and then they decide, hey, I can do this better, or I can do it differently, or I can be my own boss. So I would, I'm very happy to say that at last count, about 2 months ago, we had hit the 10,000 mark on startups in Tamil Nadu. And at least on our registration, about 6,500 of them have happened in the last 4 years since our government came to office.
Fantastic.
And almost 4,900 and something are women-led startups. So some of it is our incentive, some of it is our startup TN mission, IT&T, etc. But if you have an ecosystem where you have hundreds of thousands of people working on relatively advanced stuff, that's the seeding ground for entrepreneurs, for at least tech startups.
Absolutely.
Because they have to learn it somewhere, right? Very few people come out of college with this brilliant idea. I mean, I went to MIT. A lot of people at MIT are working on cutting-edge stuff. So it's easy for them to do innovation and startups because they are the world's leading media lab or tech university. And then, so you have to learn something from somewhere that is the inspiration. You don't just drop out of the sky and say, okay, I'm going to create something. So that ecosystem, I believe that having relatively high-end companies, high-end product companies, Chennai is often called the SaaS capital of the world. All this innovation comes from people who have been there, done that, and say, I can do it better, or I can do it on my own, or let me get 5 people and I can do more efficiently than this 2,000-person company because it's too slow to move, right? Yeah. So I think we are just starting to see that kind of shift from a lot of job seekers to job creators. And I'm 100% clear, for example, why do we have such a good fintech and payments ecosystem in startups here? Because the financial services companies have always had tens of thousands of employees here. Therefore, the people who are working in these companies understand these products really well, understand the needs, can see the future, and say, let me go and do it, right?
On the lighter vein, I think they also do this because they don't like their bosses and then they want to. But thank you for this true insights into how this works. Thank you so much, Minister, for having taking the time to be with us today. So let's give it a big round of applause for the Minister.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.